Right, so here we are. It's Sunday lunchtime. Most people are probably tucking into the Sunday roast with the families, but I'm here making a YouTube video about the fight card in Leeds last night, so more fool me. Anyway, moving swiftly on from that. Yeah, I did a preview yesterday, and to be honest, it was very poorly planned for myself. I only got the preview video out a couple of hours before the show started. As a result, no one ended up watching it. Sort of kind of rookie error from myself, so lesson learned. But what I said in that video is that I found this card very uninspiring. I find Josh Warrington an uninspiring fighter. I found the undercard tremendously mismatched. All the fights were going to be wins for the home fighters. And that this was an example of Sky having a pay-per-view model, and as a result really compromising the quality of the regular Saturday night show. So what they do in order to keep the Saturday night shows going is make them purely locally relevant. So they sell tickets to a certain people, and they don't risk any of the big names, any of the world title fighters. They put them in very, very uninspiring fights in order to keep them winning and not affect their pay-per-view value. That was highlighted tremendously on this card. We'll get to Josh Warrington towards the end of the video, but as I said in the preview, there were 3 world title level fighters: Tony Bellew, Stuart Hall and Martin Murray. Those are guys who are all been at world title level, certainly fought for world titles in the last 12, 18 months or so. And yet all of them were in horrendously uninspiring fights. The bill opened with Tony Bellew, and every time I look at Tony Bellew, I mean, don't get me wrong, I know he's too big for light heavyweight, but I just fundamentally think that the guy is too small for cruiserweight. I mean, if you look at the guy, he's not got a big back, he's not got an overly big frame to my eye, and to me, he just looks like he's getting to 200 pounds by putting on loads of fat, as opposed to being a big guy at the weight. For me, if you stood Bellew next to a Marco Huck, for example, he'd look by far the smaller of the two men, certainly. But anyway, that's size was irrelevant in this fight, seeing as the gap in class was so vast. The guy he was in with had 26 losses on his record, and the amazing thing was he made Bellew look very, very average, and he made Bellew look wildly inaccurate. And Bellew's inaccuracy is a constant theme, and for me it's one of the main reasons why Bellew will never be a true class act. He'll never be a world champion in my eyes. If you recall the last 2 rounds of the now infamous Bellew versus Cleverly fight, you'll remember Cleverly up against the ropes for the last 2 rounds, not throwing a single punch, literally standing there almost pleading to be knocked out by the massive punching Tony Bellew. And all Cleverly was doing was standing against the ropes and going like this, just moving his head side to side, and Bellew kept swinging wildly and missing and wasn't able to land a clean punch. Now we saw that again in this fight last night against this opponent. It went 5 rounds, the opponent was stopped on his feet, and literally, by the most simple head movement, the Sky commentators made it sound like this guy was some sort of James Toney type fighter, how slippery and awkward he was. It was similar to when they were describing Jason Gaverne against Anthony Joshua, and they were saying what a slippery, awkward customer Jason Gaverne is. Well, I mean, to be honest, if Bellew's struggling with this kind of level of opponent, with 26 losses on his record, or however many it was, how is he going to struggle against Juan Pablo Hernandez, or a sort of legitimate world-class fighter? Because this guy was making Bellew look wildly inaccurate. And I'll tell you the other thing, this guy was also taking Bellew's shots. Bellew was landing some big punches on him, and he wasn't dropping this guy. This guy got stopped on his feet, and for me, Bellew, all of this, the bomber stuff, all of this I carry power, he really is a British level fighter. He really is. I think I cannot see him winning a world title fight. For me, he's got no different levels to his game. He's rank average, and he does nothing overly well. I thought it was amazing how this level of opponent was able to counterpunch Tony Bellew. You know, he was able to pick his punches, and he caught Bellew with some big shots. I mean, don't get me wrong, he didn't hit hard at all, so he never hurt Bellew or anything like that. I'm not suggesting that was the case. But he was landing some punches on Bellew that if they were coming from a big opponent, you know, could really, really hurt him. And we saw that in the Nathan Cleverley fight, didn't we? I mean, Cleverley couldn't miss with a jab in the early round. But it just amazed me that this level of opponent was causing Bellew that many problems, and, you know, making him look so inaccurate, making him look so defensively frail. It was a really poor performance from Tony Bellew, in my mind. I'm not saying that just because it took him a few rounds to stop the guy, not at all. I'm saying that because of how average this guy made him look. And to me, Bellew is about to get a big loss when he steps up to cruiserweight world title level. And I do think he'll be knocked out at that level as well. Because I think some of the punches that he's liable to take are not going to be pretty from a class operator. Martin Murray, you know, one of the most embarrassing fights I've ever seen. I think he dropped the opponent 7 times, but the opponent was down on the canvas, probably double that. He must have gone down 12, 13, 14 times, you know, constantly taking a knee. Skyer making Martin Murray have to be some sort of Sergei Kovalev level puncher now. He steps up to middleweight and he's knocked out 3 people on the trot. Like, Martin Murray couldn't beat an egg with a whisk. Like, you know, let's not forget that. Martin Murray is a skillful fighter. You know, at the top level against guys like Triple G, the best is brought out of him, and he shows some skills and some abilities. But in these kind of 8-round fights, he is one of the most boring fighters to watch. You know, I've got no problem seeing Callum Smith, Martin Murray, George Groves, Martin Murray. I think that level of competition brings the best out of him. But seeing him in these 8-rounders against journeymen, you know, I'd rather watch paint dry. Honestly, it's horrific. It really is. And this, you know, this opponent, like, what he was playing at, he looked, you know, I'd heard he campaigned at 140 pounds previously, and looking at the two of them, you could see that there was weight classes between them, and probably more than one weight class. And Martin Murray was so dominant, but yet still kind of looked average. You know, his work wasn't overly clean. He kept dropping this guy, but he wasn't really hurting him. You know, it was just a weak, uninspiring performance. And I think Martin Murray's another one, like Tony Bellew. You know, these are guys who I view as British level, maybe above British level, but for me, they're just going to come up short at world title level because they don't have that something to their work. You know, they don't have that special ingredient which makes them a class above and makes them someone you view as a world title challenger. Just my opinion. Funnily enough, the sort of shining star of the card was actually the Fury family. Tyson Fury giving a sort of highly entertaining, slightly outrageous interview at ringside when he said he was as serious as cancer, which rubbed a lot of people up the wrong way. I think I took that. There was that song, wasn't it? I think it was by, you know, Rhythm is a Dancer, and I thought he was quoting that as a lyric, trying to be funny rather than making a joke about cancer. But yeah, anyway, it rubbed a lot of people up the wrong way, which I get. But he was excellent as always. He was dressed ridiculously, speaking ridiculously. The one thing I would say is he looked in very good shape. You know, it looked like he'd lost a lot of that timber. You could see in his face there wasn't too much fat on him, and he looks in a good place 5 or 6 weeks out, which is good to know. His cousin, I believe, Isaac Lowe, looked very good against Jamie Spate, I believe the guy's name was. Isaac Lowe won by 9th round KO for the English featherweight title. And he's a really interesting fighter. You know, some of the punches he was throwing were pretty good. You could see he's got good hand speed. He's got great shot selection. He looked like a really talented fighter. Perhaps a bit light punching, which may find him out at the top level. Possibly like Hughie Fury. You know, he might not have enough power to really put opponents going backwards at the top level, but an interesting fighter with a lot of skills at this stage of his career. He was the most inspiring, actually, in the ring, whereas Tyson Fury, as ever, the biggest character, full stop. Josh Warrington versus Brunker. I have to say, I was impressed by Josh Warrington. I've routinely slagged him off. I've routinely said he's basic, limited, he's got no upside. He did a good job last night. He really did. He won 12 rounds to 0. Now, don't get me wrong, don't take my words out of context. Bronco was horrific. He was impossibly bad. It was crazy how poor Bronco was. And when I say limited, one-dimensional, this guy redefines limited. He just plodding forward, throwing nothing, no plan B. I mean, this guy looked terrible. And funnily enough, based on what I saw last night, I'd pick Isaac Lowe to beat Joel Bronco. Easy. Possibly to stop him. Josh Warrington didn't stop him. We know Josh Warrington's not a big puncher, and I think that came out again yesterday. Lee Selby's not a big puncher, but Lee Selby was able to find the gaps and to force the stoppage against Bronco. Josh Warrington wasn't. But the one thing I'd say about Warrington is his work from the outside was slightly better today. There were some decent combinations. He was putting his punches together slightly better than I've seen him before. There was a bit of hand speed there, a bit of snap to his work, and he was certainly a lot more eye-catching than Bronco. What I've seen Warrington do before is come in too close, smother his work, try and be this Ricky Hatton style fighter, but really lacking any of the basics to be a Ricky Hatton type fighter. So I was slightly impressed. It was the biggest fight of his career. It was a step up from him, and I thought he stepped up in terms of his performance. It was a good show from Warrington, and yeah, I've got to say credit to him. He did better than I thought he was going to do, so fair play to him. Don't get me wrong, in terms of being a world level fighter, I still don't see it, but he could be another one of these guys who's sort of English, Commonwealth level, and comes up short, like a Bellew, like a Martin Murray, like a Paul Smith, that type of fighter. But the performance he put in last night was certainly more inspiring than what we saw from Bellew, Murray, etc. So, yeah, fair play to Josh Warrington. I still don't think he's got a chance against Selby. Still don't think he's, going to be the next big thing in the international levels. But, yeah, good performance from him. But a terrible fight. Because Bronco was so poor, so average, it just was not competitive, not entertaining. And I think that's interesting. I mean, last night there was just no competition. It was so easy for all the home fighters. It just wasn't a competitive card. Easy work for all the big names. And yeah, for me, I'd give it a 4 out of 10. And I think that's being charitable. I'm giving it 1 mark for Tyson Fury's ringside appearance, 1 mark for Isaac Lowe, who probably wasn't even meant to be televised, 2 out of 10 for the rest of the card. Let me know your thoughts on this one. How did you see it? Many thanks for watching, and is this going to be the start of what we're going to see regularly now Sky's got this pay-per-view model again? Locally relevant shows, not nationally relevant shows, and any name who's remotely world title level in 8-rounders so as not to risk their records and stop them being pay-per-view material. Let me know your thoughts. If you've enjoyed this, give me the like, give me the thumbs up. Thanks.